Well, hello and welcome, Lanita Ellis, the Scrappy Grandma. And this is my Living in the Way playlist. And what that means is basically, uh, not too long ago, before life got super crazy, the father basically told me to live out loud and share my journey. So that's what I'm doing. And for those of you that have followed along, um, and I should have done this video first because I just did my Torah portion video and cried through the first bit of it because I was letting down and releasing steam. Um, but so this is an update, just basically. So it was 2 months ago. We found out that my dad hadn't was in a hospital, a, a skilled nursing facility, and when he got out, he had nowhere to go. Um, he had just moved 4 months earlier, moved in with his sister. He moved from California out to North Carolina with his sister. And then shortly after that, he had been undergoing cancer treatments for prostate cancer, radiation treatments. And so, right after his radiation treatments were concluding, Rusty and I went down. We helped pack him up, clean up his townhome, and he flew off to live with his sister, sent all of his belongings out to North Carolina. And shortly after he arrived, his health started deteriorating and he started falling and ended up in a skilled nursing facility. And, but also, with his aunt, she's 2 years younger, has health issues herself. A lot of the care ended up going to his sister's daughter, a new cousin I didn't know I had. And, to kind of bring just up to speed, um, I my father, I was conceived in the back of a car, and my parents, a 19-year-old boy and an 18-year-old girl, and yeah. And shortly after he found out about me, he enlisted in the Navy and he disappeared. And my mother, um, she had several different stories, I guess, that maybe she thought up may have what have happened to him, but I didn't find out. I thought that her, um, she ended up marrying a man who my brothers, which is a whole nother story, my brother's father, and I grew up believing he was mine, my dad. And then they ended up in divorce and she remarried again. And I was 14 and found a picture of her holding me in her wedding dress and me as a baby. And I'm like, well, now why would she have gone to all that trouble to put on a wedding dress to take a picture with me? And my girlfriend's like, duh, duh. I'm like, no. Oh, so, I confronted her and I essentially found out that my entire family, grandmas, aunts, uncles, everybody had lied to me my entire life. And it really set me on a bad course. And that's, I don't, I don't know, I was probably precocious in trouble from birth because I can see my granddaughter is very similar. And so, but this is where I, took a hard left and self-destructive lifestyle. But anyway, so yeah, there's this mysterious man out there that, I had a picture of him and my mom. Hold on. There. There they are. They were going to a country club dance. My mother made this dress. She sewed it herself. Anyway, um, funny story with that. I raided that out of my mom's photo album, but she just basically told me his picture was in there, and she came to my house one day. This is way back in the 80s, and I'm in my early 20s. She's like, "Why do you have whatever guy's picture on your wall?" Because it was a man with blonde hair. I'm like, "Well, that's my dad, right?" And she's like, "No, that's not your dad." And then she showed me the picture of my real dad. So anyway, so yeah, life went on and, you know, but when I was 36, I tried finding him because the internet had come out and, US people search or people search or whatever. And I wasn't able to find him. And I've shared this story before that mysteriously to this day I don't know, and that was like 26 years ago or 28 years ago. Mysteriously an envelope showed up in my important paper file that had my original baptismal and my original um, birth certificate with his full name and occupation on that. And so I was then able to put more information into US search, and I did. I found him, and recently actually just found because I've been organizing, trying to get ready for his. It's not in there. Anyway, it's in one of my files here. Um, my original letter to him asking if, are you my father? Um, but so then, we lived in two very different worlds. He was very affluent, very a lawyer, and ended up being married to the mayor of Dana Point, Lisa, and lived in a big, beautiful, huge mansion on the bluffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean at Dana Point. Lovely. And so we would see each other once a year, maybe talk on the phone, maybe twice a year when I'd reach out. Well, when he and Lisa were still married, we had more contact. And then after he and Lisa divorced, then there was very little contact. And that's just, men. And it's not something that's part of his rhythm, part of his life. So, but then he, I would call him every now and then, make sure he was doing okay and what's up. Or if we were going in the area like to see our granddaughter or something like that, then we would, hey, we're coming into town or we're passing through. You want to have lunch? I want to have dinner. Anyway. But when we went to help him move, I noticed that really, nobody knew, but he really actually needed help and someone to help care for him. Because you could tell by the way his house, that he was living, that he was not able to take care of everything anymore. So I was happy he was moving in with his sister, that they would be a companion for one another because she was recently widowed. And so, but, she wasn't able to care for him. And Stacy has a full-time job and kids and a mother who's having health issues also. So he came here, and it's been a whirlwind of 2 months of for preparing for him to come and really not knowing his full conditions. He is wheelchair bound, can't even take one step. Um, he, anyway, we picked him up a week ago today, and it has been hard, but good. Um, it has been everything that I was worried about is a non-issue. And, all the things I was afraid of aren't happening at this point. But his condition's a lot worse than we were expecting, and he does require a lot of care, unable to do much of anything for himself. Um, so that's a whole new learning curve because I'm having to keep a, 84-year-old 6-foot man alive. I've had really good practice over the last year or so taking care of my grandchildren, last couple of years, taking care of my grandchildren, and keeping them alive. And in the Father's wisdom, he's so beautiful because he took from, over the last few years of trying to heal and get healthy and get my stamina. And, last year he said, or this year, I don't remember exactly when, but he said, this is a year of your healing. And my stamina started coming back. My brain fog started going away. My energy started coming back. My strength, I still have to work on. I've lost a lot of strength over the last 10 years. And that's part of getting old too, but being sick as well. But anyway, taking care of the grandkids, I had to develop patience and endurance and strength and, you know, patience, compassion, um, kindness, all the things. Um, so it was really, really good preparation for having him live here in my home. And some of the things I was really concerned with is about, I'm going to have to wear a bra all the time. I mean, there's my reality. It's like, and that's a non-issue. I don't. So I didn't have to worry about that. I have to, I can't wear my hobo clothes. As you can see, yes, I can. Um, he could care less what I, and I have to realize he was in a hospital for 2 months before he came here. So he could care less about the aesthetics of things. He is very, he's, he's been on his own for 84 years. Well, and especially the last, I don't know, 20 years. Um, since he and his wife divorced, he's been on his own. And now his health has gotten to where he's not capable, and but he's still his mind. And he was very much, country club, very affluent, and he doesn't have that here. But he's been really gracious, and he's it's been beautiful in that we were never close, and he always kind of had this air that he was, you know, I was not I was beneath him, just he wasn't he was disappointed that I was not educated because I dropped out of high school. Um, that I didn't have a college education because that's very important to him. And, so it's something he always kind of, I could always just tell he was disappointed in how I turned out. And I have to be really honest, I was very disappointed in, he was not the daddy I was hoping that, he's not affectionate, but neither am I really. So, I mean, I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's probably better that he's not affectionate because I'm not a real huggy person. And if he were, it'd be something I'd be uncomfortable for me. So it's something I'd have to get over. Um, but anyway, so but he's used to a standard of living that, you know, I'm not able to provide. And, he was in the hospital, so he's used to the nurse taking care of everything. And I find it an absolute honor to be able to serve him. I do. It's weird. And intimate things that, you don't want to have to do for your parents, but you have to do for your parents. And that was hard and was humbling for both of us, all of us, Rusty, him and me, to go to those places, that I was like, yeah, I don't want to have to do that. And it ended up being a real non-issue. It's no big deal. It is what it is. I do it with the grandbabies. I do it with him. You know, I've actually, in this past week of having him in my home, caring for him, getting to know him really for the first time, and having conversations, hard conversations, He was quite negative and bossy and a bit rude and demanding, and I had to just let him know, you know. And he even said that, he would rather go stay and live in a hospital than stay because I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, I do know what I'm doing, and I do am fully capable of taking care of you, but you've got to stop being so rude and demanding and argumentative and listen. And he agreed. And we actually had a conversation that was really beautiful because he was expressing his, um, and I'm thankful for this actually, that, he's expressing his preferences. I'd rather know, that he'd like a lighter coffee mug and less coffee and less cream and tap water instead of cold water. And, those are good things for me to know of his, things that how he prefers things. Um, but he was doing it in a really negative, demanding way. And I basically just let him know, it's like, you're really negative, and you complain a lot. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, yeah. I said, so tell me one good thing. I want to hear something good. I want to hear something good come out of your mouth. And he paused for a minute and thought. And I was sitting next to his bed. And he reached out and he grabbed my arm. And he said, I'm really thankful that you're in my life. You and Rusty, you're really good people. And, I had to realize that was the first time that my father said something kind and nice to me. And it's interesting because my mother, who also is more point, more apt to point out the negative, and sadly, it comes on me too. It's a learned nature versus nurture, and I got both. Um, she actually a couple of weeks ago said the kindest thing to me the first time that I can remember. Um, when I basically was saying that I feel like I'm in a rock tumbler, and having parts whacked off and being polished, and it's painful and it's hard. And I said, but I'm going to come out as a really shiny, pretty diamond. And she started crying and she's like, well, you're already a diamond in my eyes. And I'm sure you're a diamond in Rusty's eyes. My mom's never said anything like that before to me. So it's interesting in their old age, my parents are actually becoming kind and interesting. So anyway, in this past week, and it's bizarre to think that it's only been a week that he's been here and the construction still isn't done, and he's being really gracious about that. His shower's not finished and we need to get him bathed. Um, but we're also exhausted. Rusty took the whole week off. We had a doctor's appointment and they went and got a haircut, and my dad's it pretty much took a lot out of him. So he's been resting a lot since then. And we had a fabulous Sabbath yesterday. Um, we napped. We just napped and got some of our strength and energy back. Thank you, Father, for your Sabbath, because it is life. So anyway, there's my update. It's been, this Torah portion also with, oh no, then there's that Jacob and Esau reuniting. Wow. So my brother and I have been estranged for 20 years. He hasn't spoken to me until we haven't spoken to each other in 20 years. And around the time of Day of Atonement, I felt convicted to, write him, or just compelled, to write him apologizing for my portion. Um, I realized because I have another friend that I've been estranged pretty much for 19, 20, well, for 20 years. And I was a hot mess 20 years ago and pretty brash. Well, I still am brash, but um, I ticked off a lot of people. And a lot of people just didn't feel they needed to be around me. And I was probably really negative and I had a loud mouth. I still have a loud mouth, but it's tempered. Anyway, um, so I wrote him an email and sent it to him, um, just asking for his forgiveness for my portion. And that's really all we can do with people. We need to keep our side of the street clean, just pay attention to those specks in our eyes and not anything else. Cleaning up the specks out of our own eyes. That's what we're supposed to do. And then ask for forgiveness for those people where we blindly bashed into them because we had specks in our eyes. And he responded very matter of fact. Um, I was pleased that he responded at all, but he responded as, I forgive you, now drop it. Okay. So I dropped it. And there was times I considered like, okay, I'm forgiven, I'll drop it. What's it like being a grandpa? Because I found out that he was a grandpa and we're grandparents now. And that was part of my email. It's like, we're grandparents now. Let's enjoy being grandparents together, you know. But anyway, and I don't even know when because my brain, but it was last week, I received an email from him that said, call me with his phone number. And I didn't realize. I mean, not having my brother in my life, I had come to terms with it. It had been 20 years, for goodness sake. So, whatever. It is what it is. I miss him, but that's life. Get over it. Can't do anything about it. So, we pretty much have talked every day since catching up, sharing pictures, sharing videos of our grandbabies. And it came at such a perfect time because while I have all this going on with my dad here and learning to um, serve him and do the work because it's physically very hard for me because I'm disabled myself. Um, physically and mentally hard, emotionally hard. What, how beautiful that the Father smiled on my brother and I to bring about reconciliation. Reconciliation with my dad, reconciliation with my girlfriend Gina, reconciliation with my girlfriend Shell, reconciliation with my brother, with our children that were estranged over the past several years. And it's because we chose to surrender all and be obedient. Since we decided to surrender all and be obedient, the Father has completely, and it talks about, and he promised me this during the times of estrangement, is that he would restore everything that the enemy had stolen. And he has multiplied it. My relationships with my children, my dad, my brother, my mom, my friends. He's so good. And he's such a promise keeper. And all he asks for us is to get to know his ways and to walk in them, fully surrendered. And with that comes restoration and peace and joy and hard times. But in the hard times, it forges us into who we were created to be if we surrender and allow him to take it and make it, and that was my prayer. It's like, make me a useful vessel for your kingdom. That's been my prayer probably for the last 10 years. Make me a useful vessel for your kingdom. He's faithful. So I hope this has blessed you. Um, I thank you all that have been praying for us because your prayers have been answered, and the Father has shown up time and time and time and time again and shown off in such incredible ways. And it's a terror it's a terrifyingly beautiful, wonderfully horrific, agonizingly fabulous journey. Get up every morning, strap into the roller coaster and say, as you wish, Lord, as you wish, your will be done. And then go for the wild ride. So, and here I share my wild ride with you. Anyway, bless you all. If anybody made it to the end of this, I don't even know who watches these. Leave me a comment. Let me know if yeah, maybe it's just good therapy for me to get it out. Actually, I'm just being obedient. My father said to do it, and so I do it. I share my story. I live out loud. The good, the bad, the ugly, the hard, the fabulous. All right. Y'all willing? I'll be here. I'll share more later. I'm not even sure when. I try to do it weekly after my Torah portion call. Um, but I don't know what my life's look. I have no idea what my life looks like from day to day now, because everything that I had comfortably, patterned out in my world for my comfort's sake has all been thrown into the rock tumbler. And so I have no idea. About the only schedule I have right now is to make sure my dad gets his medicines and I feed him and take care of him, keep him alive, and get to know him in the process, which is beautiful because he's kind of cool. I like him. And I've actually, in this week, I've grown to love him. I didn't have any love for him because I didn't know him. I had no love for him and I didn't really like him. But I appreciate him. And I kind of like I like him. We're getting to know each other now, and he's funny. And he actually is very kind, very kind. I could have been just taking offense, which is what I do and don't need to. He probably never ever meant, well, he told me he never meant for me to feel that he looked down on me. That was just me feeling inadequate. So, um, thanks for joining me on my journey. Talk to you soon.